Yo, I got a big buildup. Storage. Been biting all this information. Had to really find a way to feel as though I could retain the tension from the place that I left to the place that I'm at now. And I've really had to fine tune a lot of the things I was doing so that they could fit in the place that I'm now at. And I've got a whole booklet full of things. A lot of them are pictures. A lot of them are stories. Ghost hunting. Do they want to hear me speak in tongues? The only reason I'm this far along on the tightrope is because I already know the answer, so I write in tongues instead. How hot can the glass get and still keep its screen from being broken? The process by which is on one side created in an experience of differentiation, where the glass can in essence shatter without ever having done so, if no one acts like there is an elephant in the room. Here's my little oh dude. Really? Rather than read most of this stuff and kind of exacerbate my vocal cords, I'm just gonna kind of go through all these at a glance. Because I know that I can really kind of just take it to where all these wires connecting all these electrical components just become frayed. This is like a buildup of quite a while. Again, just putting it all in storage. Copies of copies of copies of copies. Some of these might be kind of overlapping with things, but the majority has never been exposed on this platform. And for the sake of their exposure, kind of demands that there's a little bit of an overlap for me to be able to do this with reason enough to actually have something happen here. Welcome to the art show, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't it amazing how many designs can be designed? You know, it's like I'm just sitting here watching the reflection of all of these. It's like mesmerizing. What happened to my hair? I know, man. I know. What's up, dude? I took a knife to it. Like, I had so much stuff just get like up inside my hair that one day I was just like, all right, and I just took out my knife and just decided that that was it, at least for the time being, you know. How have you been, dude? It's good to see you in the chat. It's been a while. I hope you enjoy abstract art. I'm kind of using YouTube to kind of catalog all of these things that I've done, you know, so that way, no matter where I travel, as long as I have some sort of a connection to this platform, then I can just pull up all this stuff kind of on demand and be like, hey, you know, whoever might be interested in it, if I'm having a conversation face to face with someone, I can always kind of refer them back to this, or even later on down the road when I'm looking for inspiration, I can kind of find myself back here in this place and access it easily rather than having to carry all these materials. Enjoying the weekend. It's good, dude. I feel the exact same way. I am ready for the weekend. And like some things like this, like it's just so subtle. I don't know. I was like making this caramelized sugar one time, and it's like the process called for me to continue on cooking for a lot longer, but then I stopped the process like way short, and I felt like I had to utilize a lot of restraint, and that's kind of what this piece reminds me of here. It has like 3 characters in it, but I had some people later asking me, because I like let them try this candy, and they're like, how'd you make this? And I was like, I just had to stop short. I just had to make sure that there wasn't so much going on that it clouded out everything, and just had to hold myself back and stop short. But dude, Polish guy, it's good to hear from you, man. This channel's been silent for quite some time. Like I said, what I'm doing right now is just cataloging all this stuff, kind of. I've been doing a lot less like streaming and a lot more kind of work offline, as it were, you know? And this is kind of like the built-up summation of all that work. And this stuff right here, I actually did a video of this, but I made all this pigment, this ink. I went up and hiked up into the mountains, and I found some pigment and crushed it up and made this ink right here, and then I used a fountain pen. And I have a video of me doing that. This is a little wizard's hat I made for a gnome in the front yard, or the porch. That one was fun. Let's see here. I made this for my nephew. Now, a lot of this stuff is like feeling based. So rather than actually trying to like capture a mental image, I was just going straight for really trying to feel the release of pigment onto paper. What do you think of my artwork so far? Centrala Internetu? What's up with the tribal ink? Oh, this? So, I've been doing a lot of like construction. There's like a few videos back, I did a live stream of the job site that I'm working on right now. I'm building a massive deck for somebody right next to a lake up in the mountains. And it's an hour-long drive up to the job site every single morning. And I'm usually meeting with like 3 to 4 people around town here. And before we even head up to the mountain, yeah, this is kind of like minimalistic, but it's obviously very like in your face. So to make sure that I get there on time, like meeting up with all these people, I'm usually sitting in my vehicle for like 30 minutes because I don't want to be there like right on time or like late, because we're all driving to a faraway location. And so I go and I sit in my vehicle. I usually go to the gas station and grab myself a drink or whatever. And then I sit there, listen to like some podcast or watch a YouTube video. Listen to some music, and just to like keep myself awake and like give myself some motivation, because I'm going up to this job site and like lifting, you know, like a lot of shit all day long in the blistering heat, and it's brutal work. And so it's just like, how can I like give myself some sense of like warrior attitude? So this is all like the warrior that I use to like get up there and just work through the heat all day long, lifting heavy shit. Did I graduate? Nope. No, dude. School is this very demanding place where it's like... But yeah, anyways, before I get onto that topic, this is all just kind of like motivation, a time killer, make sure I stay awake while I meet up with everybody. Okay. Did I graduate? No. I'll get to the school thing and elaborate on that. How is the cooking guy? He's getting married. So, he's doing good. I mean, kind of marriage is like a rich aspect of life, because to even contemplate such a notion, it means that you've been established in life well enough that you can actually even go out of the demands of life to seek a partner in life, right? So in those terms, I think he's doing very well. And then, but yeah, I haven't heard from him too much. He saw that I cut all my hair and shaved my beard and mustache and everything, and he said the same thing you did. He's like, "Whoa, dude, who are you?" You know. But yeah, he seems like he's doing good. And then the graduate thing, right? You know that I'm really like into like the wordplay and stuff like that. What does the word graduate mean? It means to like actually leave a place. You graduated it, right? So metaphorically, yeah, I graduated because I left, you know. But in terms of the literal sense and popular opinion, next year, 15th of August. It's good, dude. Honestly, like I said, I think that marriage and a partnership like that means that you've been able to showcase a lot of skill sets in life that mean that you are able to go above and beyond just the simple demands of life through a partnership, right? I think that's great, dude. I think that you are definitely gonna have a lot more kind of challenges come your way, but I think that those are things that are only for your benefit because, you know, it's the obstacles and the ability to raise the boulder over our shoulder that actually allows us to feel a sense of joy and accomplishment, you know. So that's good on you, dude, really. But the school thing, I was doing great in school. I was getting amazing grades, but it's just like when you're in that high of the educational system, oh yeah, dude, this psychological barrier is like honestly, I think you got to play hopscotch to honestly get over the psychological barriers of life, dude. I think that one technique that I use is I call it playing hopscotch. And you know what hopscotch is, right? It's this thing that's drawn on the cement and you have to jump into specific squares and then balance and then pick up a little totem and then jump back. When you're having to focus like that on some sort of very like demanding scene at hand, it allows you to kind of shroud out all of those things going on that otherwise would cause you to falter in your step. So if you're having things like that, you need to draw up some sort of design in your life that you have to hopscotch through and pick things up. But ultimately, if you're trying to be someone who is accomplishing something, then you have to make sure that this design that you're jumping through ultimately serves your purpose while you're having to have a demand of physical aspects that are focusing on the task at hand. It still accomplishes all your psychological needs, because being such a person who has recollection and understanding, the loss of this understanding and thought is almost as scary as losing a limb, because you identify with all the memories associated with this vocabulary. And so when you're designing this hopscotch to jump through, you got to make it so that it actually accomplishes the psychological, but actually takes away the thought involved in it. So the thought is something that comes beforehand when you draw the design, and then you jump through the design, and then you jump back, and then it allows you to kind of get through the mess, the jungle of life, right? Because you're sitting there, you're hiking through this jungle, and you're having to focus on not tripping over roots and pushing vines out of the way and stuff like that, rather than sitting there without moving and just being overwhelmed as the jungle starts to consume you and starts to grow around you, you know? Keep moving through the jungle, stepping over those roots and moving and pushing those vines out of the way. But also, in a certain sense, design the jungle that you move through so that as you move through it, it still accomplishes your purposes of thought. Because it's this thought which gives you a lot of this purpose in life, such as the meaning behind the marriage that you're working towards. And it's these attitudes of age and of having a relationship and experiences with another person, which is all just, you know, the summation of experiences that you've had up until this point in time. And so it's not about totally doing away with that, because if you totally did away with all of that, you'd be like a child and you wouldn't have the ability to enjoy these thoughtful psychological experiences. But at the same point in time, to make them so they're not so overwhelming, you got to keep moving through that jungle and in some ways build some of your own vines to swing on, you know? But yeah, school's tough because, you know, it becomes extremely demanding. And to hike up that mountain every single day, it means that I have to find ways to motivate myself. And in some ways, my motivation actually detracts from what the school is asking me to do. But at the same point in time, it's what is demanded of me to actually continue my ascension to the place of knowledge. And so I was continually just reinforcing this stimulation. Yeah, for sure. Just, you know, and honestly, that's what all this stuff is me kind of doing what you're talking about. Obviously, we have different goals, and you know, it's a different form of stress, and there's a different, like, sort of release upon the ending, right? But that's all that was too, is just me trying to figure out some way to really have some sort of profound nature to my existence while still doing things in a way which are cohesive with the normalization of reality, so that I can actually experience reality, so that I can balance this chaos and, you know, these aspects of having something beyond life which is almost dreamlike, but at the same point in time working within the dream itself to make the dream something that is manageable and tangible, and not trying to kind of overwhelm the whole system of everything, but in a way trying to make even the normal something that is extraordinary. That's what all this is, right? This is my attempt at making the normal something extraordinary. Why doesn't it, you know, like, actually, I guess, work in a lot of ways for a lot of people? Well, you know, it's because it's hard to stop short. As soon as you start acting out like this, it's hard to stop short and to put down the pen, to put down the makeup, to put down all of this, and you know, to have some short stepwise form of creating a dream within this reality, so that you don't totally just collapse everybody's reality around you and then in essence collapse your own reality. But ultimately, you know, you realize that any dream will become normalized if it becomes almost accepted, so you're battling that as well. That's good, man. I'm glad to hear it. I think that's definitely something that a lot of people should take into consideration whenever they're going through something, you know what I mean? It's just like, just kind of keep going, but at the same point in time, you got to realize that there are so many directions that you can go, and that sometimes you need to either look at the direction you're going at from a different perspective or change directions, you know? I was watching the new Mr. Glass. Studies has been tough as hell. Yeah, dude. Like I said, it's hard to just Good on you, dude. That's good. Yeah, school is a game in and of itself, you know. People say that it's all just about the grades, but there's such a massive social and political structure involved where, you know, to actually find yourself in a position to actually get good grades, you have to play so many other games, financially, politically, socially. For an English degree, nice. Honestly, you speak English about as good as anybody that I knew who was raised speaking it, so you should definitely be able to get a degree in it, you know. But honestly, I was taking English level courses on the collegiate level, and even for somebody who's grown up with the language, you know, all of a sudden, because people are trying to make more meaning out of something, um, and trying to find some sense of new feeling or awareness in tuned with it that they weren't exposed to before to continue on this experience of life, right? Even for people that have grown up in it, English still becomes a very difficult thing once you're on that level. It becomes oh, engineering. Yeah, I was like, I saw English and I was like, I didn't think it was English. Engineering. Okay, well, yeah, English is its own thing, and engineering is definitely um, something else. I maybe I'm a little too English because, you know, I did a video I think yesterday on engineering and mechanics, but it was very abstract. It's like all this artwork. It's like looking at engineering and mechanics as you know, a construction of thought, which it really is. Engineering is a construction of thought. It's taking this concepts that you have mentally and reforming them and based upon your understanding of the world, making this a reality. But ultimately, it has to kind of like be an engine that runs off of and pushes something, right? That's what engineering is. You know, when whatever it is, even if it's a simple machine, even just a lever, obviously it's a mechanism in the great and grand scheme of your understanding of physics and reality around you, right? And so use INZ for a shortcut. Engineering, okay, for sure. Yeah, engineering's fascinating. You know, there's so many different things in life that are kind of attacking the same problem, but from so many different perspectives. You know, it's like engineering is speaking through physical means. You know, it's looking at this kind of code of reality and, you know, kind of interjecting into the code through a manifestation of thought with a physical object, you know, that kind of fits into that whole cog. But then ultimately, you know, you're trying to create a ripple from your injection at that point that allows some sort of motivation to move, motor, you know, an engine of sorts that causes this motion. And so yeah, engineering's fascinating. I have a couple. Yeah, I've already talked to you probably about all the videos that I have had on like engineering and whatever else. It's kind of really redundant to just sit here and be like, oh yeah, I had a video on this that I think that you would enjoy or whatever. But yeah, I don't know what I'm doing now, man. I'm just working my guts out, and like I said, just trying to create some sense of, art, 3-dimensional art, 4-dimensional art, and a piece of art myself that moves through time and space, but obviously it's like that show, I was watching that show Mr. Glass, the newest one, where it's like these guys are superheroes or they're not superheroes. It's pretty much just an adult version of The Incredibles, right? And software engineer. Oh, great. Well, that actually fits more in with what I was saying, because that's more actually computer programming. It's been so long since I've talked to you, man. Computer programming, you know what I mean? That's like freaking the Matrix right there. You're writing code, and it's like working within the coded framework of existence, and it's like you got to create really just an eloquent story that provides motion. So I mean, still, it still is this creating motive through reason, and looking at the reason around you, but sometimes kind of redirecting that reason, for a different motion, based upon whatever your kind of, I guess, intention is, whatever feeling you strive for. Yeah, that's Matrix stuff right there, and it's like I'm trying to balance so many conversations right here now, but something that I was thinking about the Matrix the other day is he goes around and he's talking to all these people and he's like, "You're a program." He's like, "Are you a program?" And they're like, "Yeah." Well, Neo's a programmer, right? But ultimately, and there's a kind of a confiscation of thought going on in my mind right now, because yeah, I bet. I remember when I was going through chemistry, I started looking at everything so different. It was like, whoa. It was like I could almost just see the vibration of the atomic molecular structure of everything. I'm reading your if I'm just looks like I'm just sitting here doing nothing, I'm reading your thing. Yeah, like a program tree, for sure. Yeah, well, I think that using comparisons like that are helpful. It's just you have to keep your blade sharp. And sometimes a sharp blade is blunt because you just got to hammer it in on the other side. You know what I mean? It's like these are all very airy constructs that we're talking about here, right? It's like we're talking about a programming tree through coding, and then it's like you're making a relation to an actual tree and how it has this branch network of kind of systems, you know, and but again, I say this is very airy talk, but ultimately it's that kind of that that air that allows the movement and evaporation and absorption of things that give a tree life, right? And so I think it's good not to be afraid to just sit here and to just go and sometimes to be stumped, you know, bunch, kind of like a tree when we're trying to reach for a new thought, maybe, you know. But yeah, so Neo's a programmer. Ultimately, we'll just separate the word out, grammar, right? All he's using is the word as a sword to interject his code, uh, you know. Yeah, no, it's great. This is all good stuff. It's kind of for people to kind of go this far, you know. It's kind of just like kind of out there for a lot of people, but I mean, I go out like this into the real world. People are just like, am I awake? What kind of tree it is. So yeah, I know that I had a better thought about that whole Neo and where I was going with his, like, he's calling people programs, but he's a programmer, you know. It's almost like the Tron, the users, and you know the programs and stuff like that. But it's almost like he's obviously running off of programs as well. Yeah, I go out like this in public. Yeah. Yep. I just all I do is tell if anybody questions me, honestly, it's like if you're clever about things, you could just be like, you know, well, the founders of the country used to wear powdered wigs and makeup. So what's the difference between me trying to reach some sort of connection with what I feel is aesthetic, you know? And then by their own condemnation of trying to use reason to say that I should not be dressed like this, they'll find themselves in a place where they're not able to judge because their own judgment based upon the reason that they're using to judge is built upon people's whose actions that gave them this reason are probably in a lot of ways less reasonable than uh, gain a fist to the face. That's why I said, man, you gotta use words right. You gotta use the words right, man. Because the words are like a sword, especially if you know how to use them sharp, you know? But it's all just about finding some comparative point of normalization. People like to see something abstract, but at the same point in time, it's like a bug that they try and kill because it's out of their control. It's out of their comfort zone. And this takes me back to my Mr. Glass Incredibles comparison here. And the lady's like, why do you think that you're the only three? Well, it's like this system demands that there's almost the extraordinary, but at the same point in time, it tries to kill the extraordinary because it's something that is frightening to the normalization and you know, the cohesive nature of this framework of concepts that gives people the ability to actually have a sense of self. And so at the same point in time, people are trying to elevate and ascend their lives and their reality, but they're also trying to tear that down and normalize it so that it can be something in which their reality isn't something beyond their conception. Because as soon as it goes beyond their conception, they are as like a child. They don't have the adult aspect of being able to have possession, and so they try to create this perception of reality that doesn't have any whimsical aspects to it, because then it's so light and fleeting they can't grab a hold of it, and then they can't have that satisfaction of being possessors of reality, right? And yeah, you know, and so Neo's calling everybody programs, but ultimately he's run by programs. In Warsaw, I would blend in. The fist throwers to anyone other than usual. Yeah. You know, I have so many stories that if it ever comes down to the point of where somebody's really trying to condemn my actions, it's like I have such a buildup of kind of media that it makes it hard for anybody to actually use reason to judge, or even ignorance, because somebody who's acting off of pure instinct means that a cliff, right? If they're purely primitive, then a cliff in front of their perspective and vision is something that is also acting upon kind of the primitive aspect. And so all you have to do is put a cliff in front of them, which then, because they're not using their faculties of a mental state, then if they move forward any sort of progress further toward you, to judge you with a fist, like you say, then they're going to falter and fall down this cliff. And usually you can do that with some sort of like, I personally, in my mind, think of like using Egyptian hieroglyphic techniques where I convey a message in very simple means that appeals to somebody's inner core of understanding, that even if they are acting out of a primitive instinctual desire to inflict harm upon me for my appearance that is conflicting with their paradigm of reality, they'll be confronted by these images at a glance, which ultimately render their primitive instinctual motive to attack me to have to search for a higher aspect of mental faculty. But then even in reaching for the mental faculties, then based upon their utilization of reason to try and tear me down, then all of a sudden there's such a buildup of reason as to why there is no reason at all for them to even have reason to come at me. Then ultimately they just have to just either accept what I'm doing or walk away. But that's kind of what I do, or at least I try to do, or at least I think I try to do, or at least I don't know, I dream that I do. I don't know, man. I'm just having fun with life. Like I said, just trying to have fun, but then obviously, be something that creates this meaningful form of it, which means that to a certain extent, all of this whimsical aspects to it have to be normalized. Otherwise, it is so fleeting. It is so uncapturable that you can't have any connection to it. And so in so doing, you can't even experience it, right? But I'm doing my best to try and make it something which is beyond the normal, while talking through the reason that I'm doing this to make the concept graspable, which then makes all of this graspable, which then makes it, even though it's extraordinary, something that can be dealt with in the normal aspects of reality. Is there any idea behind this, or just strictly like, I have some writing that I kind of go off of, that I kind of followed when I did these two things, right? I wrote a poem, and it was called Dablo, and it's based off of Diablo. And you're familiar with Diablo, right? You know the game. And it has a little bit to do with Zoroastrianism as well, where to actually create meaning, you have to have something and then a space. You know, it's like the characters of written word on a page. And so really all this means is my ability to kind of capture that essence of having something and then space. And it's the space between the lines which actually give the lines meaning. right? And so this is very minimalistic, but it's, and obviously the characters themselves, yeah, they're angles and things like that, you know, but the meaning, at least more so for me than anything, is the ability to just do a little but then refrain from a lot, but then obviously have the little be very prominent so that the space in between everything actually makes everything pop out enough so that it's obviously something that can be seen or made aware, like a star in the sky. You know, as soon as all the stars' energies collect and collapse into the ultimate form of light, which is the sun, then we don't see the stars anymore, right? And that's like the Zoroastrian Diablo mechanics of that poetic sense within me, and that's trying to be captured, at least, you know, maybe consciously or unconsciously, by my hand right here on my face. Now this right here, honestly, I kind of look at it as like a reminder of like mathematics and physics. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like particle decay. You know, beta and alpha particles in like nuclear mechanics. But that's what these symbols remind me of, is that. And then ultimately, it reminds me of a tree growing. And this conversation that I've been having with you has been like a tree, because it's trying to connect everything to the main trunk, but then ultimately have so many branches going off. But then these branches and roots all have to connect down to the same root, otherwise they all will die and fall off, because there will be too many bends in the pipework and no connection between any of it, so it can't actually take water up. Let me yeah, so this kind of reminds me of like just like mathematical structures and physics, and obviously it's put into an art form with the, you know, the headband aspect of it, and it's of like a reflective nature so that it mimics the other side. It's also a little bit like reminding of trying to search for and seek for divinity within life. It has like a Mercurian aspect to it, but then also a like a hermetic aspect. And you probably know who like Hermes and Mercury are, right? Let me capture one of my browsers really quick. And I'll put this up. Okay, there we go. Let's go here. Right? So I'm like trying to capture like essences of that with all of this within my day-to-day life, right? And I'm trying to make life something which is able to house these aspects. Why can't life be something that is so extraordinary that it commands the presence of deity and of just something so dreamlike that life itself becomes this fascinating thing that is incomprehensible from the dream itself. Right? And then let's look at like some particle right? So you see, yeah, so you see this right here, the alpha particle. See if I can zoom in even better. Let's get this bigger on my screen. So these alpha particles, right here, and then you have these on the crown or whatever it is I'm wearing, the headband, whatever you want to call it, you know. So yeah, there's quite a bit of thought that has gone into, like, you know, my get up and garb. You know, and obviously I'm working with a lot of things. Yeah. So it's just a reminder of that for me, you know. I like to carry the things that I have a fond connection of. Oh. Ah. Yeah, I haven't actually been playing that many video games lately. I've just been doing, you know, things, like I said, totally offline, totally, you know, away from like electrical means, you know, even just, oh. The end is near. No, this is the sign I'm holding up. I'll be on the end of the street holding things up like this, and people won't have any idea what I'm talking about. But it's because it's not supposed to mean anything. Rainbow Six. Yeah. I think I remember you telling me that honestly that was a really good game. I played Rainbow Six like a long time ago on the original Xbox. I played it, but it's been a long time. All right, I'm gonna keep doing the museum of things here, so I can catalog all this junk. See what inspiring words come from this mess, Polish guy. What's been your favorite class in school? Like, what's been the title of your favorite class? How much of a museum do I got left? I'm through like half of it. This is what's been going on. Just so I want to make sure that I'm responding to everything you're saying, but obviously it's dealing with a lot of the delay of things, and obviously kind of what my intention with this video was. But I am super glad that you're on here talking. So yeah, Rainbow Six has changed. All right, and then your favorite class is computer techniques and architectures. And you say that you really suck at drawing. Oh no, man. Like, I have kind of this thought process that I use when I'm doing all these things. It's like you have to realize the age that you are in, however old you are. And when you're attempting to kind of go into a new form of thinking about things and seeing the world from this perspective, you have to almost revert yourself back to coming at it like you're a child. But at the same point in time, yeah, no, and honestly, this was more so of me just really finding a way to release energy. Okay, even more than expression, even it's just a release. But when you're doing art, you have to treat it like you're a child. And how does a child do art or any form of anything? They just throw it on the walls. They make a mess of it, And so if you're ever wanting to do something like that, you have to look at the age that you are and how can you make a mess, but obviously there are still almost these parents around us at all times, like parentheses around our equation of life, and we're things that are trying to always break these parentheses that are containing our equation, so that we can further our equation and things like that, right? And just like with money, the more money you have, no, like I said, man, I'm somebody who gets down on his hands and knees and like just draws on the cement still, and for no more purpose other than just like a release of things. It doesn't have to be anything for me, other than that. And like all that this is just a sense of something that I can then refer myself to easily later on, as I'm kind of traversing different bounds of space. But hold on, I got some. Hello? Good. What time is that at? Yeah. And you guys are wanting to go to a movie? Really? Yeah. Alright. Alright. Okay. I mean, I still have a lot of time to think about things. The main thing that I'm trying to do today is I gotta go get fitted for a tux. No, it doesn't. But honestly, that's the only thing that I'm really like focused on getting done. Other than that, everything's just up in the air, and it's all kind of like based upon like, you know, I'm just so exposed over the week that it's like I like to crawl back into a little bit of a shell over the weekend, you know. So it's just like, do I really want to go out and kind of uh, be totally exposed again, even when that's what I've been doing all week, you know? But it's just really just stuff like a rodeo and things like that. It's like I don't know. It's like going to watch a basketball game for me. It's just like I'm just sitting there. I almost have to like take something else. Like I enjoy going and being able to like say with people like, hey, yeah, like thanks for inviting me. I'm glad I was able to go, and maybe then talk with them about it. But it's like I almost have to take something that's not even a part of what's going on to be able to just sit there and just sit there for however long it goes on for. Hi, Jet. How are you doing, bud? You are? Yeah, I know. I know. I just, eh, my weekends are just really kind of like seemingly like one of the only times I really have to try and do things that, I've been kind of thinking about for the whole week to get done. And they're mostly just creative things that obviously aren't really that important, but it still is kind of nice to just have that time. Even if it's just like sitting around doing nothing. Taylor. Oh, like, um, okay, Joe's kid. All right. Yeah, yeah. What is she doing? A barrel or what? Barrel racing. All right. And so it's gonna be you and Jan and really? Okay. And where's this at? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Really? From who? From Alex? Oh. All right. Okay. All right. Uh. Yeah. I need to just kind of uh be aware that if I'm being asked to go somewhere, it's because obviously people like my presence, so just sign me up. Just sign me up, I guess. I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll head over there in a little bit or something. To the house or whatever. Okay. Bye. Alright, I'm back. Yeah, that one is totally my frustration with women right there, man. It's like I have so much stuff. It's like trying to go back to it is like, am I gonna find this again? Nah, I told her I was gonna go. I said, if someone's asking me to go somewhere, I need to just be aware that obviously they enjoy my presence, so I should be somebody who's, you know, much more open about kind of being something that's demanded, you know, for. So it's whatever. I told her I would go. She's like, all right, sign me up. But that's not till later today, so. But yeah, that picture with the angel and the person holding up the scissors. I mean, honestly, that one has like a ton of thought into it. I was like laying in bed one night and had so much frustration about a lot of things, you know, and trying to capture the essence of people writing these stories and knights slaying dragons and cherubs and Cupid and all of that, you know, interspersed with like my bleeding heart. And kind of like somebody getting somebody into a ball and chain where it's like they're just kind of an expression of you know, sacrifice for the sake of dialogue and this sense of life through a perfect story. And then they're just feasting upon their soul. But then here comes, you know, the person to cut the story, the tale, the hair of whatever that woman. You know, all that I was trying to capture in a very simple thing at a glance. Yeah, dude, it's nice, you know, and like I really enjoy like having a total weekend of silence and stuff like that, you know, but at the same point in time it makes it really difficult to have such a steep drop off and then to get back up from that on, you know, Monday or whatever and then go back to work again. So, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, I probably should get out. You know, I probably should keep moving even through the weekend and not have it be so much of a weekend, but a strong, you know, end or whatever. And then and then with a strong end, I can have a strong beginning on Monday, you know. 64 square meters of heaven. Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about, dude. Because it's like for that span of time, that's exactly what it is. Oh, great. Here we go. And this goes here. I'm gonna read some poetry after looking at this one. All right. what's the heat that it drives one into the shade? What's the shade that it keeps one cool? The shade talking to the heat, that the one who sought it remains while in it. Is the shade then in heat while the one who was in heat sought the shade now in the shade? Does the one in the shade keep the one in the heat cool while in the shade of the one in the heat? What then is heat and shade if the shade is in heat and the one in shade keeps the shade in heat? Is then the one in the shade the heat? What keeps each cool? What keeps each hot? The other? Is something outside either? What keeps that cool? The same mechanism that keeps this one cool? Is it then different? When is one really hot? When unable to suppress thought? What keeps thought at bay but brain freeze, where when the ice is what's in the heat? Yeah, dude, it's almost like you are the king of the castle, you know? Too much shade. But yeah, man, I feel the same way, you know? My little cubicle of heaven or whatever, you know what I mean, over the weekend. And it's like, yeah, I really do enjoy the people that are inviting me to go and do things, you know, with them and whatever else. But it's like, well, let me just like, you know, take a few more hours off the clock of that 64 square meters of heaven or whatever. I'm almost done with all these. Can't believe you've sat through this whole whole art show, dude. Oh, you're really gonna like this one. Yeah. Look, this one's all about heat and the shade. Honestly, this one was Hades. I was thinking of the concept of Hades, like the ancient, you know, mythos of Hades, and that's what this one's about. But it's also like interspersed with like degrees, you know, because Hades is hot like hell, and what is school but trying to receive this payment of these things, and you're trying to dig to find shade, but then ultimately it's causing heat, and it's a moaning and it's a wailing, you know, but then ultimately it's like the bipolar mechanism of this reaction gives such satisfaction that it's like this pit of Hades that is so sexual and also kind of Hellenistic. Yeah. Anyways, there's that. I could go into it in way further detail, but yeah. I got you. Hey, man, if no one's calling, then take advantage of that time. I have some techniques. A lot of people, they have a very hard time spending time alone. You got to get out a little bit still, right? So like here's what I do, Polish guy. When I have like a total weekend to myself, I'll go to like a food joint in town that I really enjoy. I'll get everything to go. And I can still have like a weekend alone because strangers aren't really that demanding. You know? And so it's like I'll go on a bus ride on like a train, and I'll sit there and I'll have a coffee and I'll just write while I just stare out the window. You know? And then that takes up like the first part of my day. until like I don't know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, right? Maybe go walk around a city in an urban environment. Maybe have a few conversations with some people that, you know, is one that I engage. And then I'll come home, come back to my home, and then I'll go out, find that place that has like the food that I enjoy. I'll go out, I'll get that. I have to force myself out of a shell a little bit, wait in a line, you know, be patient and kind of adhere to the demands of the business side of reality for just a few moments. But, you know, I sit there and stretch and do some yoga in line, and it's all fine. And get my food, come back home, turn on Netflix, you know, and sit there and watch. And then all of a sudden, all of that solace is something that actually can be really like appreciated. You know, and there's always a way to walk the line of loneliness to where it's actually not lonely to do so, right? Like I remember one weekend not too long ago, all I did all day was watch people like do playthroughs of video games on YouTube. And I found a way to just keep providing myself with some sort of stimulus or, you know, through an engagement of thought or like by a manipulation of my surroundings. I built a fort. Okay. And however old I am, I went into my living room and I built a fort in the living room out of all the couch cushions, and I had like umbrellas that I'd used that I had like propped up, and I put big old blankets over it, you know? And then I like sat in this fort all day and watched people play through video games. But in the action of me kind of interacting with my surroundings in that way, it made it so that my moments of solace weren't lonely, but they were actually enjoyable, and I was able to overcome the ability of, you know, having time be something which reinforces meaning in my life, be something that I can look away from for a time and enjoy being out of time, you know. The only thing I plan for today is lay down in the bathtub. Hey, I've been making my own shampoos and conditioners lately, so I can connect with you on that. I've been like going to the store and I'll get a bunch of fruits and then I'll mix it with alcohols and with salts, and then I have it in this big tub. And then when I get home from work or whatever, I'll go and throw that in the bathtub and, you know, zone out in there for 30 minutes or whatever. It's great. Light some candles, maybe play some music. I don't know. I'll just sit in there and just lay in there. It's great. So, yeah, we made it through the book of art, if you want to call it that. Call it expression. It doesn't have to have any title. Call it a release for me. All it is a balancing act of me putting my foot over here for a time so that I can still accentuate all these other aspects that I want. You know, it's an action here, which means that I have to have an action over there, which means that I have to have an action over there to remain in this space. For the shampoos. Yeah, no. Free museum, yep. Definitely. Well, I think that I'm gonna go and try and I don't know, get out a little bit. I gotta go. You probably heard me say I gotta go get fitted for a tux. I have a friend's marriage coming up here pretty soon. and I was waiting today until they open. They open at noon, so I can kind of, get there, get all this squared away early off in the day, have a little bit of time between now and the rodeo that I was invited to go to. Yeah, man, but it's good. It's good to see you in chat, and to realize that, hey, there are still people that are kind of paying attention to what's going on this channel, and stuff. So it's great. I really am. I'm appreciative of your presence here. So. All right. Like, it's gonna probably be a while, like this is months and months worth of things that I haven't shown to anybody, that I just was like, all right, today seems like a good day, boom, and just brought it out. So the cooking guy, all right, no, I'll let him know. Here, I'll send him a message on Instagram right now. Here, I'm taking a picture of your comment on my phone and sending it to him. All right, I sent him a message. I'm gonna head out, dude.